All right. So here's our workshop on tarot decks, self-publishing, Kickstarters, crowdfunding, the whole gambit here with Jennifer Cooper Steidley. And, she is the creator of Tarot Disassembled. Maybe you heard our radio interview with Jennifer. Maybe you saw our tag team deck review that Mary and I did. Boy, that was a lot of fun. We did that on a Facebook Live. It's all available on the website, folks, but we thought, after the interview with Jennifer, why not get her to come on here, do a workshop, basically just an intimate, exclusive discussion with her where we look into creating tarot decks and publishing and self-publishing and Kickstarters and crowdfunding and how you do it all, really. And because we know we have a lot of members that want to create their own decks. In fact, in the green room before we hit record on this, we were talking a lot about decks we all want to create and things like that, and it's a lot of fun actually just talking about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Jennifer, where do you want to start with this? Maybe your story.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
How did you even decide to, create a deck, and how did you go about it?
Well, yeah. So I've been a, self-proclaimed tarot nerd for most of my adult life. But I kind of practiced tarot in the closet for many years, just because I didn't live in a place when I was in, way back in the 90s when I first got into it. It wasn't very, there wasn't this big community around it like there is now, at least not that I understood there was, I couldn't seek it out or find it myself where I was. So I kind of just had this little hobby that was, my friends knew, and they'd sometimes ask me for tarot readings, but for the most part, it was just my little personal hobby. And then, so it's always been something that I've loved, the tarot. And I'm a graphic designer by trade, and kind of had one of those, those pivotal moments a couple of years ago where I lost a big client in my graphic design business, which I think is like my spirit guide's way of kind of shoving me off that cliff and being like, you've been wanting to do other things, we'll help you. You don't have any, you don't have anything to do now, so do something different. So I started kind of trying to create decks, which is really what I wanted to do for many, many years. And then the tarot deck, I've always wanted to create a tarot deck, but I didn't necessarily have any hard, tangible idea for one until, I had one of those little light bulb moments, because my son, who's 11 now, he was about 9 when I first started thinking of this idea. And he likes to literally take everything apart. Everything gets taken apart by my son. And I just was watching him eat lunch one day, taking apart another sandwich. It's all stuff he'll eat, but here's the ham, here's the bread, here's the cheese. He's got to like literally lay it all out. And I don't know why, I just started, it's somehow like there was a little weird connection where I'm like, what if you took apart the tarot like that? So that was kind of my little seed of the idea, and I just kind of ran with it from there. So, and here we are.
Awesome. So what really was the process though? Okay, there's one thing about actually creating the images and creating the deck, but then figuring out the whole thing from, self-publishing. You self-published, right?
I did self-publish. I did a Kickstarter and did the printing and everything on my own through the Kickstarter, through the funds from the Kickstarter.
Awesome. Mary, jump in here when you want.
Well, what was it about Kickstarter? Because we've talked to a few people, that we had Nicholas Bruno that decided to just create his own crowdfunding website.
That was amazing.
And then, people have done Indiegogo, right. What for somebody right now who is like, kind of like you were, okay, now they've got the elements of their deck together. And what do I do? How do I get it out there? Why Kickstarter in particular?
For me, it was what I knew, because I'm a big deck collector. So I actually back a lot of Kickstarters because I'm a big fan of indie decks in general. So I was very familiar with the platform, being a backer to a lot of different campaigns. So it felt, and I was in the tarot community. I definitely, some of the connections I had made of other creators, I was seeing other creators, mostly have pretty decent success on Kickstarter as far as being able to get something funded. So I definitely was very tentative about it and very trepidatious, but going into it. But I had hope because I kind of had a little familiarity with that platform and I had seen others had success with it. So I kind of just went with what I knew. I definitely am familiar with Indiegogo, but I have never personally backed anything on Indiegogo myself. Not because I have anything against Indiegogo, but it seems like the feeling is there's a larger percentage of droves doing tarot decks on Kickstarter as far as doing the crowdfunding for decks. I see a lot of decks on Kickstarter.
Yeah, there's like 1,000 projects or more.
Oh yeah, and it's just as a platform, it's very big right now in general. But with decks, I think decks is a large part of its market for crowdfunding. So they definitely are pretty big on that platform.
The other thing you can do is, gosh, I'm trying to remember who, Mary, maybe you remember the deck creator that was it the Lost Tarot, and they did a Kickstarter and then they did an Indiegogo. So you could start off
maybe
it might have been, and so you can start off with one and see how it goes, and then you can do another crowdfunding on a different platform. So it doesn't have to be an either or, but it does seem to me that Kickstarter, like the general public, even if people know what crowdfunding is, I think, if they know, they'll know the word Kickstarter before any of the other platforms, except for GoFundMe.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is it that you wish you had known going into this that maybe you didn't know until after you were into it, like,
or done differently?
Can you think of like anything that you kind of wish you'd done differently?
I was really lucky to have had a very, very good experience with my very first Kickstarter. So if anything, I would say I wish I would have understood the power of it. Because I really went into it just hoping, I hope I can get my budget amount funded in 30 days. That was my only real thought was, okay, I hope this works out. I think it has a chance. And, I got funded in 6 hours. So I honestly don't think I understood what was possible with Kickstarter. So for me, it was in some way, not that that's a bad thing because that's a lovely surprise as far as learning in the middle of it. But I don't think I understood the true potential that it had as far as what you could really do with it and how far it could go. And I think if anything, if there's any lessons learned that are more profound for me, it's just not limiting myself, trying not to put limits on what I hope for, if that makes sense. Like next time I'm going to be all in, like I'm hoping for it to just go crazy big,
$5 million. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk the Alleyman's Tarot. Like that's the one that's the biggest one yet. Still, it's $1.5 million. I think Alleyman's Tarot got on Kickstarter. So the potential is there. The potential is huge for what can happen with it.
What all do you budget in when you set that amount? What does that really include?
For now, I've seen some people do it differently. For me, it's everything that every dollar amount for anything that's going to be created, produced, fabricated, or I don't budget in any of my time. I know some people will actually budget into their campaign, I need to get paid. And my thought was, if I can get this run of decks done, eventually I'll make a profit because I'll have others to sell once I'm past the budget for funding the production, if that makes sense. So I don't personally budget in a paycheck for myself, if that makes sense. I hope for that, but that's more of a down the road thing in my mind. So I budget in all of the printing, all of the materials for. You got to think of all the little things you might not think of. Like, for example, when you're going to ship things out, there's, depending on where you land, I end up with almost 900 orders. That's a lot of boxes for shipping. So that's a whole chunk. I actually had a plat full of shipping materials showed up to my house before the decks did. That was taller than me. And I'm like, okay, these are just the boxes for shipping them out. So you have to think about all those materials, shipping tape, shipping boxes, shipping mailers, labels, and I got a new thermal label printer because I obviously want to be able to print my shipping labels a little faster than the old school way. So, kind of budgeting in all those real particulars to make your production actually be able to go once you have the decks in hand. I also had a lot of add-ons and goodies for my backers. So I had stickers, I had art prints, I had postcards, I did a spread cloth, I did let's see, what else did I do? I did a bookmark. A lot of those were like the stickers, postcards, and bookmark were kind of extras just as a thank you. Some of the other things were add-ons they could buy. I had a journal that was kind of a tarot journal they could get with it. I had a deck wrap. Yeah, you can add on a lot of fun stuff with a tarot project, and I see a lot of the campaigns do that. They add on a lot of nice extras. So you can, that's all a production cost as well if you're going to add those things in. Things like business cards. I obviously wanted fresh new business cards to include in every order. So have to, budget that in. I budgeted in some of these nicer little thank you cards that I wanted to make sure was in every box I sent out. So just you really have to, like, to me, budgeting is a huge part of it. You have to really be meticulous about thinking through every single little cost you might not have considered. Like the big ones, people will remember to budget in printing, because that's obviously the biggest goal is printing this deck. But you want to budget in all those other materials that kind of go with it. But yeah, shipping's a tricky one. That's, to me, a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah.
Shipping is a really tricky one. That I learned from shipping, but I still feel like it's tricky even if you get your bearings. The way I chose to approach shipping was I did a ton of research on the current shipping rates and did, weighed my pack, got the weight of what my deck would be for my printer, got the size and specs of what it would be, found the mailers that would fit the deck just right. And so I had all those parameters that I could enter and find rates for shipping. Within the US, since I'm located in the US, that was a little bit easier, but international shipping was a lot trickier because it's very different all over the place. And I think I started doing my research and budgeting back in like June of last year, launched in August, and then had production going that fall and was shipping by the holidays. And by that, in that 6-month time, a lot had changed with the shipping rates. So I learned a little bit of a hard lesson of eating some of those costs because the shipping rates had gone way up for some of those international. Yeah. Then we had things like they weren't even, the US post office wasn't even shipping to Australia for a little bit. There was, there's definitely been some influxes with these shipping things. So I know some people will just choose not to do international anymore. I've seen some campaigns where they're like, sorry, this is only open to the US to start. I've seen some people, and I think this is what I would try to do if I do another Kickstarter, handle the shipping after the campaign closes. So they'll have you pledge your amount for your rewards. And then they'll have in the print, shipping will be, calculated and added after the campaign is over. So they'll use something like Backer Kit or another service that will help, find accurate rates after, when you're closer to your shipping time. And then they'll basically be charged. They'll have to pay that to get their rewards. To me, it's tricky. I mean, if I'm talking too much, let me know. I'm kind of definitely, all my mind's just going on all these
No,
things.
This is great. This is exactly. Hey, just to give everybody an idea, I went on a couple of them. So here's Tarot Disassembled, 879 backers, $66,835. And, we recently had, well, not that recently, it was earlier in the year, but it still seems like it to me. I can't believe it's June. Charlotte Luna, we had Charlotte Luna on as a guest, and she did the Octopus Tarot.
Yes.
And I mean, had it funded like in an hour. And she ended up with 3,095 backers, $202,616 on Kickstarter.
Huge. That's amazing.
Yeah. And just all octopuses.
Yes,
right.
And it's just
it's
octopuses.
It was a beautiful deck though. Yeah.
Hello
beautiful,
Kitty,
right?
and we got to figure out what's the new trend and just go make a deck, folks.
Yeah, like elephants.
Trees.
Has anybody done elephants? Trees.
Elephants. Oh, elephants are big. You got Sarah McLachlan on the TV.
Yeah. Oh my God. You could run that music underneath your promo video for that. Maybe that wouldn't work.
Oh, we'd have to ask her, Sarah, could we use this for our tarot deck?
Fine.
got the elephants on it. Get
But
permission, right?
how
Yeah.
long? So you do the Kickstarter, you make your goals, it gets funded and everything. You've got, all your stuff. How long does it take you to get everything distributed to all those backers? And also, are they all patient people? Like,
Yeah. And the
you
other
get
thing I wanted,
hassled?
do you have to have a
Yeah.
team?
Yeah.
I did not have a team. I probably could have stood to had one.
Probably
because,
could.
especially when it came to the fulfillment, because I chose to ship every one of those boxes out myself. So I was like, I could do this in about 2 weeks, I think. And it took me almost 2 months of solid packing orders every day, like
Wow.
sundown. So, which is fine. I wanted to very much put that love into every box because I was so grateful. So I kind of wouldn't have chosen to do it any other way. But if I do another one down the road, I might use a fulfillment center because that's an option to actually have your deck sent somewhere and have them sent out to all your addresses.
If your project grosses $1 million, you hire people to send it out.
Right.
Why not?
Right. But I'm sorry, Mary, I feel like I got off track. What was your question though?
Just what was it like doing the fulfillment side of it? And also like, are people patient, because sometimes people are like, I already paid for this and I want it right now. It's like, did you deal with any of that?
I was pretty lucky. I didn't have too many people being impatient. I think
good.
A lot of the people that are on Kickstarter they're not new to Kickstarter as backers even. So I think they kind of understand this is how this works, but I think it helps immensely if you give a very accurate timeline on, listed on everywhere that they are clicking, I want to do this. So I also think you should pad your timeline just for that reason. Like, give them the estimate of when they'll receive their rewards and add a little bit extra to it, because you'd much rather end up surprising them early as far as when they think they're going to get it than having these things come late. So that's kind of something you build in. You have that in your Kickstarter template. When you flush out a Kickstarter page, it kind of forces you to say, what is your estimated delivery time of these rewards? And I would definitely encourage people to be very meticulous in figuring out your timeline, but then add
that a lot
to it.
Yeah, I see that a lot where they put it on there, estimated delivery, what are some good things like, see, right away, I would think that, good extras would be like, I would want a spread cloth and a box and maybe like, like a wooden box, or a drawstring bag, and like I have, so I have my Grand Lux deck with, cheer, and I have had this bag forever, since like 2000, I don't know, something 6 or whatever, from Chiro. It's got a cat doing a tarot reading. It's so cute, but like, if you could, and Chiro's been doing this, and with his wife even doing, gosh, they were doing kimonos and everything, but if your imagery lends to it, making custom spread cloths and bags, I think would be a fantastic add-on. What else do people do? And what did you do?
I had, as far as add-ons, they could choose to add on a spread cloth, a journal that kind of matched the aesthetic of the card itself, so a tarot journal. I worked with a great company for the journals, by the way, because they're a company called Denik, D-E-N-I-K, and they actually work with a large portions of their notebook and journal printing goes to form establishing schools in impoverished areas of the world. So they have kind of a really good missions, so you're kind of doing a little good with that company. Just want to throw that out because they're a great company to get a product made from with intentionalness. And then I also had, I worked with a lovely creator out of Scotland that I met on Instagram, and we just hit it off, and she does beautiful fabric crafts specifically with tarot. And so she made beautiful deck bags. So it was, instead of just a pouch, it was a deck bag that you could put the deck into. It wraps around and has a beautiful little string. And then when you unwrap it, there's this beautiful long rectangular velvety space to kind of lay your cards out on when you're on the go. And then she also, because she knew how to do all this, because obviously like fabric is not my domain, I wouldn't have known where to start with that. She was able to have me design a pattern that went with the look of the deck. So we actually had custom printed cloth made for the outside of the deck wraps, and she was just lovely to work with. She was amazing. So I definitely have seen other people do that, collaborating kind of with other creators to include a nice product that maybe isn't something you can provide yourself. Whether that's like a fabric wrap or bag. I know, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Jamie Sawyer. Do you guys know, she's a deck creator. She's amazing. She creates a lot of decks herself, but she creates what's called tarot tiles. And so they're like little wooden tiles that she then puts the art. I'm not sure her process, but she somehow gets the artwork onto them, and then they're kind of finished, not laminated per se, but they have like a finish, maybe a resin or something that kind of seals them. And she's actually a deck creator herself, but she's also, I've seen, worked with other creators who are launching a deck where they offer a tarot tiles version of the deck. I didn't do that, but there's lots of things you can do with collaboration, I think, of bringing in another creator, to do a custom bag or to do something like that. That's for your deck, but that's kind of a neat added little custom product.
We have a good question here from Rory saying, I would like to hear more about the art production side. I'm a writer, not a photographer or graphic artist. I'm often stumped by how do you make this art into a card?
Oh, the funny thing was
already been so much great info already. Thank you.
Oh, right. Yeah. The funny thing is in the green room before the workshop started, this is exactly what we were talking about,
right.
It's like,
what do you
I'm
think?
gonna need to learn Photoshop here, or, collaborating, going on Fiverr, collaborating with an artist, all the difficulties we've had and things like that. That's a great one. Oh, before we go to that though, Jennifer, just real quick, I want to put this out there for everybody doing this, because you were talking about the bags, right? And I love the idea with the folding, with the traditional drawstring bags. I don't know if you can see it, but like the other tassel is gone and all the beads have fallen off. Let me just throw this out there for, all the deck publishers that I know are watching this workshop, right? Because Llewellyn always watches stuff, right? Yeah, right. But no, seriously, to the next generation of deck creators and bag creators, this was 1835, folks. I mean, come out with a bag that has a flap with a magnet or Velcro or something where the tassel doesn't fall off, please. Thank you very much. Okay.
There's a wonderful creator. Her Instagram handle is Moonlit Fae, I believe, and she actually makes beautiful bags for tarot that are more like almost like a little wallet with like a little flap and a clasp, or like a little flap. So, and she has beautiful patterns and fabrics, and she'll kind of custom them to certain decks. And so Moonlit Fae, F-A-Y-E, is Moonlit Fae. I don't remember if there's any underscores or anything, but she's fabulous.
I'm thinking clasps, snaps,
some
magnets, Velcro, anything that can't come apart.
Yeah, those drawstrings are, they go fast for sure.
They go fast. They really do. And I've had some beautiful, there was this gossamer bag that came from Llewellyn with the Llewellyn deck. It's actually the Llewellyn deck. Gorgeous. I still have it. Gold. It's gossamer. I mean, it is just really, I mean, I'm scared to touch it. It's going to fall apart, but same thing with the drawstrings. I mean, they only lasted so long. The bag is still usable, serviceable. I keep it more of as a keepsake now, but that would be a cool thing to come out with, a really cool pouch that you can have as an extra, on your crowdfunding campaign or so forth. So back to Rory's question about, what do you do if you're not an artist or a photographer?
How do you make, her question is, Rory, Rory's question was, how do you make art into a card?
Sure. So it depends on kind of how you're starting. So I know that there's a lot of traditional artists that do, actual like oil painting, acrylic painting, hand drawing and stuff. But I know that there's a lot of people, that's where they start from. So they may even have like a canvas size, piece of art that they're going to eventually make into one of their cards. For that kind of thing, usually you have to either have a good high resolution digital camera yourself, or hire a photographer after the fact because you need to get professional quality photos to be able to get them into the digital realm. So if you have something traditionally done, hand painted, hand drawn, if it's small enough to go on a scanner, you can use a good quality scanner to scan in a drawing or a small painting. That can get into the computer world as far as starting to get them into a format that a printer can use. If you're able to start from something digital, I know a lot of people that are not necessarily classically trained on the computer, but they're using things like Procreate. That definitely is one that seems to be big, because I think it's a fairly easy to use, intuitive one. I don't personally use Procreate, but I know a lot of people feel very comfortable in Procreate, especially kind of hand drawing on a tablet. If you have that kind of like a tablet with like a digital pen. Let's see what else. I know there's people that have done hand collage, like where they've actually done old school cutout images from magazines and other things and actually hand paste and collage. And again, then you can always scan it in or take a photo to get it into the digital world. There are some great deck designer courses out there. There's one run by Kai Henderson. She's got a group on Facebook that's for deck designers. I'm trying to remember the exact name of the Facebook group, forgive me. But I think she actually has a very reasonably priced kit that you can buy that includes things like a template that's a digital template that already has this traditional size of like a tarot card. And then it even has a place for your text and stuff. So if you're not real digital savvy or computer savvy, but you're trying to get these ideas in, she has like kind of some templates kind of ready to go. So I know there's some groups out there like that and some different kits out there that'll help you kind of get started like that. And Rory, I can definitely send you, if you're interested in like Kai's information, I can send you her information as far as where her deck designer group is and her little kit that she sells. So if you want more information on that, I just don't know it off the top of my head as far as
that would be amazing. Yeah. And I figured it was the photographing process, if you're going to use regular art. I just
the
so
lighting and everything has to get into the shadows and
all of
high
it, like
definition.
So the professional photographer, and then I'd love to learn Photoshop, but I'm so tired of learning new programs.
A lot of work. Yeah.
I just skip that, which I know is such a great tool for so many people, but thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But I wanted to tag on there and say, we're so lucky nowadays. I think that's why we have the big, not resurgence, but what would be the term for the explosion of tarot? I mean, well, first of all, tarot is becoming really popular, just mainstream. But as far as in the deck realm, with the explosion of decks, a lot of it is because of the internet, and we can communicate with one another. We can find artists to collaborate with if we're not an artist. And there's all these platforms like Fiverr that you can go on and you can hire somebody very reasonably. I mean, we're not talking thousands and thousands of dollars. We're talking just a little bit. They'll do all the Photoshop for you.
Right. Okay.
After you have the images, or you might even find the artist to collaborate with on there as well. And I know there's some sites besides, the general with Fiverr, there's more specific sites for specifically finding an artist to collaborate with, or hiring them outright, to create images, I mean, look, Wait did it with Pamela, it's like, here's my concept sort of, and Pamela ran with it, and to make Waite Smith.
So what about printing? Like how did you decide like where to get your cards printed, and what were the options really?
That's
because it seems like you gotta go to China. Did you go to China?
I did go to
Kristen?
China. I did. Yeah, printer wise, there's definitely a lot of options out there. Having worked as a graphic designer, I was fairly, pretty much already pretty comfortable with the world of printing because that's something I dealt with printers for most of my, for over 20 years. But for I personally, because I'm always a research person, I have to just research to really wrap my head around anything. So I got lots of printing quotes from multiple printers. And the one that I ended up with actually approached me. I think they kind of saw that I was gearing up for this before the Kickstarter even. And I had a rep reach out to me, and she sent me a very generous box full of samples, including whole decks and stuff that they had printed. So I could really, because I like to feel and see and feel all those finishes and see how the printing quality looks. So she sent me a wonderful box full of samples. And we just kind of hit it off, and their pricing was right. I mean, if you're going to do anything that's larger than a run of 100, say, there's not very many printers that are like the larger scale printers that will touch anything that's under a minimum of 500. So you're kind of in these different ballparks. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with getting a very small run done. It just means your options are different. Typically, when you're in the 100 and under realm, as far as doing 100 or even maybe 200 decks, you're in digital printing. And digital printing is a great resource that we have that nowadays, because 30 years ago, we really only had traditional offset printing where we
have print on demand now.
Yeah, and they have print on demand. That's why they can kind of offer all that, is through digital printing, which is digital printing has come a long way, where the quality is still very good. It still looks wonderful. So it's not, to me, a bad way to go, but your price point is always going to be sweeter if you can kind of go up closer to that 500 and above, numbers wise, because then it really shifts that price point per deck to where you can actually make a profit. You could definitely still make a profit with print on demand sites. Make Playing Cards is a great site. There's makeplayingcards.com. There's Shuffle Ink, I think, is one, if I remember right. They might do bigger quantities as well.
Game Crafter is the one I like a lot.
Game Crafters, yeah, that's another good one. The quality, I've bought decks from all those places. They're great quality still. One of the things I find, though, that does shift is there's less options with some of those printers, meaning less options for different finishes of the paper, less options for gold foiling if you want a little bit of pizzazz on something, or if you want an edging put on your cards, like a color edge or a foil edge, like things like that, or all those little kind of extras are typically with the larger scale printing companies. But yeah, as far as going to China, I would love to support a US printer as being in the US, but the costs just were so vastly different. And so as being a small company and a small independent, it's really hard to justify, when I can go somewhere else and actually have a chance to kind of make a better profit, because I'm not a huge company. So I definitely understand the push to want to support within the States, but my printer in China is amazing. And she had such amazing customer service. She held my hand through every portion of that job. And I even tried to at the end, I was like, I want to buy your company some cookies or something just to say thank you. And she's like, just spread the word about us. Then that's all we need. And we're so appreciative. They're just a sweet, nice.
And that's what you're doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if anybody wants the information, I'm happy to send them information on my printer contact. She's fabulous.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. That's a great resource. Oh, and thanks for the tip. So if you can shoot towards 500 or 1,000, because a lot of people have no clue, it's like, how many decks do I need to create? So the price point helps the higher you go, especially if you get 5,000 or 1,000 decks created.
Oh yeah, the higher you go, the lower that per deck cost goes down. So it definitely gets sweeter the higher you're able to go. But 500 is kind of that real beginning mark where you can be with the big boy printers and get the better per deck rate. And then it's also printed with offset printing, which is kind of the more traditional old school printing, which is why they can kind of offer those lower prices, and it's still usually really good quality. So it's a good way to go for sure.
What I really like, I like a lot about, I like the print on demand. I mean, I think there's a lot of us that are really lazy, and we just want to be able to send somebody to a website, they push a button, they buy it, the
Right.
company makes the deck and mails it out to them. We have nothing, we're not in that chain at
Right.
all. We're
And you don't
not
have to
sitting
worry
there
about sending out.
boxing all night
Yep.
long, you know.
Yep.
But the thing is with print on demand is it does cut out the ability to send all these add-ons. I mean, I know with some companies you can do that. You can add a box in,
Right.
and there might be, depending on the company, there might be other things that could be added, but you know, not as easy as just having the deck and it's like, oh, okay. Oh, you want the spread cloth? Oh, wait, you want the bag too? Okay. Okay. I want to put it all in a box and send it to you. You know, it's so
Right.
much easier.
Yeah. Well, and there's all those things like, you know, I think we talked about this, Mary and Dax, when we were chatting about my deck, but you know, I personally wish all tuck boxes would burn. And like, I mean, I don't want to be,
Absolutely.
I have plenty of decks. I will still buy a deck that's in a tuck box. It's not because I'm really more about the cards. So it's not like I'm trying to down anybody who has a tuck box, but I just, as soon as you open them, they're frayed and they're tearing. And I just like, so I hate
terrible.
tuck boxes. So things like the little fancy ones with the magnetic clasp, you know, and the different, or the 2-piece, or the pieces that are that open from the top, like the bigger printers are more skilled in having these different options for fancier like kind of things. If you want your deck to kind of be, you know, a little bit fancier, a little bit more, you know, custom. So they're definitely more skilled in that. And pretty much all of the big printers will usually be happy if you contact them to send you samples. To me, that's invaluable for somebody trying to get your deck specs together, because when you can actually feel, oh, I like this matte laminate, oh, I like this, you know, this box, this type of box, then you have that dialogue with your printer and be like, I want this, you know, cardstock weight, I want this laminate, especially if you're not used to all that speak. You know, they send you that box of samples, and then it gives you a lot more to work with as far as knowing what you can do.
Here it is. The world's greatest box ever. It's
It's a great box.
It's
How did you
magnetic. We
gauge-
love magnetic, you know.
We
There.
do. How did
Just the
you
interior.
gauge?
Oh my God.
If I ever get to ask this question, how did you gauge how many decks you should have printed? Because I think another thing of it is like, you know, how do you calculate what you're able to sell? People have to,
Right.
you know, have this concept of like, okay, am I going to be stuck with like 300 decks in my house because nobody bought it? How do you
And
know?
that happens.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true. It happens. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's where I think Kickstarter is wonderful, because with Kickstarter, if you have your budget amount, you know, Kickstarter is all or nothing. Just in case anybody's watching and doesn't understand that, Kickstarter is all or nothing. So it's not a GoFundMe. You know, you set your campaign budget, and if you don't make your budget by the end of your campaign, then nobody gets charged any money and nobody has paid. So your hands are clean as far as you didn't take money and then not produce a product. I mean, that, you know, that's disappointing, but it's an all or nothing campaign. So with Kickstarter, you're almost guaranteed that you're essentially doing a set number of pre-orders. So to be able to get that funding, you know, so you know that at least X number of decks are spoken for. And I've seen Kickstarters where they had their budget amount and they maybe made a little bit over, but they printed the amount they printed, and it was pretty much they had 10 left after the Kickstarter. So they maybe kind of really kept that nice and close margin of selling the decks they sold through Kickstarter, and then that was it. And it's a deck that may not ever be, you know, it's kind of a custom collector's deck at that point. Nobody else might ever be able to get it but the Kickstarter people. So you can really choose to set your numbers for your budget in the Kickstarter for the bare minimum of decks that you think, you know, you want to be able to get made. You know, for me, it was that I wanted to start with 500 simply because I wanted to be able to do all the little custom things I wanted with a bigger printer. So that was my budget included a budget for 500 decks. And I didn't expect it to go beyond that as far as upfront selling more than that in the Kickstarter itself. But it was wonderful that it did, because I then was like, okay, I guess I'll get more than 1,000 printed because I have enough orders to justify that and enough funds to justify it. So I just backtracking a second, I actually did a deck before I ever did my tarot deck. That was a little oracle deck I did that I personally funded with my own money. Meaning I didn't do a campaign. I didn't do a crowdfunding. I happened to have a little bit in savings. And so I basically just paid to fund a small printing of this deck. And that's trickier because that's where you really don't know where your interest is going to be. You really don't know. It's really a gamble. You're like, okay, I'm going to try this and I'll get it made and then I'm going to start selling it. And I hope it sells. I hope there's interest. Otherwise,
Right.
I'm really out all that money, So that again kind of circles back to the beauty of Kickstarter is number one, most of us don't have that kind of money just laying around where we can fund a printing of a deck. Some people are lucky too, but not everybody. And then number two, Kickstarter kind of shows you your interest and shows, is there interest in this product to get it made? It's kind of a way to find that out through the Kickstarter itself.
So it gives you a window. It's like, okay, already I've got clients. I've already got these sold kind of thing. And then from there, okay, you launch the Kickstarter, you get all those orders, you fulfill all those orders.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that they should then, I mean, what do you recommend? Should they have their own website to sell their deck, or a website for the deck specifically, or should they just do it on Etsy or something?
So personally, right now, I'm personally just continuing to sell on Etsy, the leftover decks I have, only because I already had an Etsy shop, so it was easy to add to it. There's a lot of controversy around Etsy. I personally still feel like it does work for me. But I know a lot of people are getting really fed up with the extra fees and such on Etsy. So my end goal is to diversify and to have, I'm going to probably use Squarespace and try and do that as far as looking at different websites that are kind of easy to make a shop storefront. So I personally think you spread your seeds. Like Etsy's great, put them on Etsy, but also put them somewhere else. Maybe make your own website where you sell them. I think having multiple places to sell is always a good idea if you have product. It's never hurts to diversify. So right now I'm currently only on Etsy, but my goal is to get a secondary website that I'll also sell on.
Yeah. Well, why do either or? I mean, I can throw up a website for somebody in 10 minutes.
Right.
It's not that hard, and you can take through Stripe or Square or PayPal. You can take your payments, and you're shipping yourself anyway, so you don't have to have an elaborate e-commerce system at all. You just need to be able to take payments, and that's very simple. In fact, you could create a Facebook page specifically for your deck, and grab the URL for the deck, like tarotdisassembled.com, and just point the URL at the Facebook page and do all your communication and showing things and videos of your deck and images and everything, all on a Facebook page that's free. And then you could also do, and none of this has to be either or, like you said. Why not create a website, Facebook page, Instagram account just for the deck with all the images, make sure you watermark everything. I'm
not so good about that, but that's a really good point, Dax. That's a lot of people are doing that more. You have to nowadays almost.
And do your Etsy shop, do a Squarespace shop. I mean, you could do all the above. You don't have to do just one thing. But if ultimate simple thing, I don't want to hire somebody to make a website. I don't have the time to create my own, even on Squarespace or Wix. What am I going to do? I'm going to make a Facebook. Or group. And nowadays you can URL to it.
And now they even have, I mean, I haven't gotten too deep into that, but I know Instagram and Facebook both have, you can literally, I think some of that you have to qualify for with your numbers, but they have the shop now button. So you can literally sell directly through Facebook and Instagram nowadays. So everything's kind of moving towards more and more resources for small sellers, I think.
Making it very, very simple and easy. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Well, what else did you make notes about that you wanted to make sure not to forget?
Let me look at my notes.
You said you had notes. Okay.
Yeah, I have lots of notes. Backing up for a second to the pre-portion of a Kickstarter. So if you decide you have this deck idea, you want to get it done, you've gotten it done, you're going to launch a Kickstarter. Let's talk about just what happens before the Kickstarter for a second, because I think it's very, very important if you want a successful Kickstarter to have, there's a lot, you can't just like launch it and be like, okay, good, here, everybody come look at this. You got to build momentum long before you launch. So I just wanted to stress that for anybody new to running a Kickstarter, that's really crucial, I think, is building up momentum. And that can look like sharing mock-ups, on your social media long before. It can be having other people that in the tarot community share some of your ideas, the share. I definitely am a big believer in that, collaborative feeling and sense of community that there is out there, because the tarot community in general is just such an open, loving community and willing to share things. I just think it has to come from a place of authenticity. So like, make other contacts with creators whose work you like, make friends with them, and then share their things. And they're going to definitely want to share your stuff too. Just do it from a place of authenticity and not, oh, I'll get in good with this person, so they'll share my stuff and then I'll never talk to them again. Like, you want to make genuine connections, and those kind of connections help build that momentum. I've also seen, I think I would do this next time. I did not do this myself, but I've seen multiple creators now for decks have sample decks made through makeplayingcards.com, since you can do one-offs, you don't have to do a large quantity. And they'll have a sample deck, maybe like 5 sample decks made, and they'll send them out to their friends on Instagram or Facebook that are also in that tarot community, and ask them, would you be willing to share some of these sample cards before the launch? And, more times than not, people are happy to share, especially if you're, if you have that kind of energy with them, don't be afraid to ask people for favors, ask them to share your things. But I thought that one was really brilliant, to have an actual real looking deck in the hands of several other people who would be, who are well known in the community, who can like show examples of it long before it launches and before there's an actual finished deck. So I think
thought about doing that, with one of my concepts. I thought about, because it's so unusual to make up some mock-up decks and send them out to folks like that, and have them not just so that they can share it on their social media, but so they can actually work with the deck,
right,
and see what they think about how it works and functions, and
right,
can they do readings with it, things like that. And then you also, and this is all before the campaigns even, I mean, this is like months out before you're even not even getting going with things. You get this little focus group going. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And also, if several of those are folks that are well known for doing, say, deck reviews, you send them out to them. And so they can be pre-writing up their deck review way before the project even launches. I think it's a clever way to do it. Really, get everybody on board early. And they're gonna be more inclined towards you because you sent them a free copy of the deck.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a mock-up. With print on demand, you could get 20 decks printed that are fairly decent quantity, and then send them out to these different folk. Send one to Mary, and send one to Sharona, and send one to me, because we'll do it on our radio shows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just find people that do reviews anyway,
right,
and hit them up and say, hey, would you test out my deck, and what do you think of this? And it makes a lot of sense. The other thing I wanted to tag on to what you were saying about sharing, and that a lot of deck projects, the people that are going to end up backing you, a lot of them want to follow the whole thing.
Yes.
And I've seen a lot of creators, I mean, they start day one. And that idea I had with creating a Facebook page for or you could create a blog in addition, for the deck, and you start doing daily posts. This is where I'm at with the Ace of Wands. Here's my Knight of Cups. What do you think? And don't be afraid to just put it out there. It creates momentum. And
it does. It does. I think that's huge. It's huge to get in front of people early. And you're right that people want to be a part of that. I think that part of backing it on the Kickstarter is you feel like you are a little bit part of that project. You're literally part of the reason that project is going to be actually come to fruition as a backer. And so, having that connection with the artist, as well as feeling a little bit of that, you're personally, you're personally invested in the deck. You're personally invested because you are going to actually back this project and to help it get made. Like, I don't, there's like, so they want it. So I think people literally want to see that process, and they want to be a little bit of feel like that. I help make this happen, you know, and that's true. It's
Yeah.
all your backers, they help make it happen. Yeah, so it's huge. That momentum is huge. So let's see, what else do I have in my notes? Just some of the particulars for anybody wanting to launch a Kickstarter, like that I would not have necessarily known. Kickstarter, you can definitely, anybody can set up a Kickstarter page, but they have to review and approve it. So if you're like, I'm going to launch this Kickstarter and I'll just flush out the page the day before I'm going to launch, you can't do that. You have to have your whole page flushed out and created, and then you submit to Kickstarter to review. It's usually a week or less. So you want to make sure you leave in time for that. You also want to make sure, don't, what is the word I'm looking for? Having like a brain fart. Don't minimize how long you think it's going to take to make that Kickstarter page. Yes, they have a template and all the tools to enter everything, but you're going to need to write the copy for it. You're going to need to make sure all your pledge tiers are fleshed out. You're going to need to have a biography about you. You're going to need to have beautiful images, whether that's mock-ups or you did a sample deck that you took pictures of. You're going to want to have a video. Like, don't underestimate, that's what I was looking for. Underestimate that itself is a chunk of time. So like, really plan out in advance. Okay, I'm going to need to actually flush this Kickstarter page out and set up the Kickstarter page, submit it to review, and then I can launch.
Don't try to do it in 2 days.
Don't try to do it in 2 days.
2, 3, 4 weeks minimum.
Yes,
setting that
yes.
up.
Leave some time for that.
If you're going to make it look professional.
Yes, and this is you're going to have to approach this like a business. You know, people are going, once you launch the Kickstarter, you're going to have messages every other day with questions about your product or your deck. You know, or even just messages saying, oh, I'm a backer, I'm really excited for this. But you want to respond to people. You want to be responsive. You want to be, you know, great, show that gratitude. I tried in the beginning with my Kickstarter to send a message privately to every single backer of thanks, of thank you so much for backing this. It means the world to me. I will admit, I got a little bit, fell off from that a little bit because I got overwhelmed with the numbers and overwhelmed with it when it did well. But, you know, show that gratitude, you know, interact with your backers, you know, really have, and, you know, send frequent updates to them, you know, really kind of keep them in the loop. It's also really important that you launch on a weekday, preferably a Tuesday or Wednesday. They say that's when your chances are best of having a good first day, a Tuesday or Wednesday. Never launch on the weekend. People aren't always checking their computers as much or doing things, so they may kind of miss it if you launch on the weekend. You really want to have a good first day. They say that how the first day of the campaign does sets the tone for the rest of your campaign. So also don't be concerned if you see what the chart usually looks like, even for a very successful Kickstarter, is a really good first day, and then, you know, some kind of action midway and maybe a little slump midway. And then that last day is huge again, because they have a lot of people have been asked to be notified before it ends if they're kind of on the fence of backing it. So a lot of people will get 24 hours notice from Kickstarter. Hey, you said you wanted to know if this was about to be over. And they'll go, oh yeah, I did want to back that. So you'll have another little surge at the end, but don't be concerned if you have a little slump in the middle. That's very, very normal. I'm really just talking right now. I'm sorry. Yeah, so don't be worried about slump. Don't be worried when you see people pull out. People will pull their pledges out. And I remember I got freaked out.
Yeah, you can't get.
Why are they canceling? That's just normal. People are going to be like, oh, maybe I don't. It's nothing personal. Half the time it's because they're backing 10 other things. And they're like, oh, I might just have to back this one and not this one. And people will pull their pledges. Usually it's not anything that's going to affect you long-term as far as a huge dent, but just try to not worry about that either. Try not to stress that. That's very normal.
How long do the campaigns run on Kickstarter?
That's up to you.
I didn't know.
Yeah, the most common is 30 days, around 30
yeah.
days. I've seen 2-week campaigns and I've seen 60-day campaigns. I think 60 is the max they allow. I don't recommend 60. From everything I read in my research, you need to keep that sense of urgency. So 30 days or less.
That's what I was going to say.
Not to feel like I got plenty of time, I'll back it later. You want people to feel like, oh, if I want this thing, I got to get it now.
Scarcity and urgency. Yes.
Scarcity and urgency. You need to keep them kind of, you know, on their toes about it. So yeah, I did 30 days. And I think that's a pretty common one, 30 days.
Let me check see if there's anything else here in the chat. Anybody wants to jump on and
I
ask
had-
questions, go ahead.
I had a dog that keeps coming in and out, so I keep turning off. I'm like, get off me. Just stay down there, puppy. But was there, would you do it again? Is what I kind of wondered.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would totally do it again. I would prepare myself for, okay, this is about to be a chunk of your year. Because it's not just the 30 days, it's all the production of everything and making sure that's all going smoothly and all the correspondence with everybody, and then and fulfillment if you choose to do fulfillment. So I would definitely make sure I was prepared to have that chunk of my life, spoken for. But I would absolutely do it again. I think it's wonderful that people have the opportunity to get, passion projects made and have a way to do that. I think it's beautiful on both ends. I like being a backer. I feel excited when I see a project that does well, and I'm a backer. It feels good. It's like, I got to help make that happen. And I'm so excited.
Yes. We did it.
We all did it,
Yeah, it does feel like a sense of community. And I've kind of noticed that with, Facebook groups as well. People will be talking about, oh, did you see this? I think I'm going to back that. Okay, I'm backing it too, and so it just feels like it's one of the things that I feel has made the tarot community a little more cohesive to some extent in some areas. And, more, we should be cheerleaders for each other. We do a really unusual thing in the world,
Right.
as readers, as, creators of decks and stuff. And, it's kind of good to know that, we can all come together and kind of be there for each other.
Definitely. It feels good. It feels good to lift other people up. We all rise when we all rise together. Like that's a beautiful part of beautiful part of any community, but the tarot community, again, is a very giving community. And I think we all do well when we all lift each other up. So.
Yeah.
Was it hard figuring out the tiers and the pricing on it? And
yeah,
that?
That part's tricky because that's not the fun part of it. Obviously the creation as an artist is more the fun part. So it's it was tricky. I'm a big research nerd. So for me, anything I wrap my head around is going to be me looking at other examples. So I just looked at a lot of other Kickstarters. I looked at Kickstarters that were successful and ones that weren't successful. And I tried to compare, okay, well, this one wasn't successful. Was their price point too high? Was, what would I be willing to pay? What is a fair price? What is, and then you can get really fancy with your tiers. There's, you can really get like, here's the tier that has this and this, here's the tier that has this, and this, and all the goodies. Or you could be really minimal and have like, you want a deck, here's the tier with a deck. You and your friend want a deck, here's a tier with 2 decks. That's it. Like you can be really minimal. You don't have to have all the add-ons. You don't have to have all the goodies and extras. I think I don't know. I personally liked all the extras just because I like that stuff. I like getting stickers and I like getting all those little goodies when I get something. So I wanted to have all the little extras myself, but it's not a have to. I've seen many successful Kickstarters be more bare bones about it. You know, this is about getting a deck made, and here you can pledge for the deck or pledge for this other, for maybe 2 decks. Another one that is really good though is early bird specials. I do think I'm a big fan of those when I back a deck. You know, if you can get in on that first day or 2, and they offer an early bird special where it's a little bit discounted price, that helps you get a good first day, because the people that have been tracking you all along and watching it, for the start of the campaign, if they see that they can also get it a little cheaper that first day, they're going to be all in. So that's help you really. Yeah, that's a lot of people do the early bird specials, and I definitely try to take advantage of early bird specials when I back things myself, because obviously cheaper is more exciting.
It is. Wow. Anything else we didn't cover? Any questions anybody has that is out there?
We've mostly been focusing on the Kickstarters and the crowdfunding, obviously, because that's what Jennifer has the expertise in. This is a huge topic, and so we're going to have to revisit it, and maybe have some folks on that did the traditional publishing route, and what's that like, going with Llewellyn or US Games or Schiffer or Red Feather or somebody. and then, you know, the creation, I think that really gets people is the creation of the deck itself. If they're not a traditional artist and they're wondering, you know, I have an idea for a deck, how do I do it?
Right.
And yeah, I think we should have more on that. But I mean, the information that you've given us has just been absolutely
Fantastic.
Thank you. I feel like I'm a little bit rambling because my head is like going a mile a
Well,
minute.
there's so
What
much
is this?
to
Oh,
it. It makes sense.
what
You
is
know,
this?
you want to get everything in. Is there anything left in your notes that we missed? Wait, I'm looking.
I definitely have a lot of notes, but I mean, I think we covered a lot of different things.
Good,
Oh,
good.
I was going to just mention, if your campaign does well, I highly recommend using Backer Kit as a secondary service. Backer Kit is because basically once you know your campaign is over, now you have the task of gathering information from your backers, and Kickstarter rocks at what they do, but they, in the post part of things, they're a little bit, it's kind of just real bare bones. So if Kickstarter does have an option to do a survey where you say, okay, I need to know mainly the mailing addresses, because they don't enter that information when they first pledge. You know, so you want to gather all your information for where they're going to be shipped and where the rewards go. You might have I had other questions too, because I had 2 different color boxes and things. So I had a more advanced survey that I needed them to fill out. But Kickstarter will literally just kind of take everything and just spit it into like an Excel spreadsheet for you, that's fine. It's usable. But for me, I'm like, I need like a more detailed system. So Backer Kit, you can pay them a minimal amount and they basically will create a more custom survey, and they'll help you monetize.
Great.
And I don't work for Backer Kit. I'm not trying to be like, you know, a plugin, but I just felt like I had a really good experience with Backer Kit too. But they will also help you monetize the after campaign, because they're like, yeah, we can basically set up the survey, but when they come to take their survey and give you the mailing address, they also are like, oh, by the way, did you forget you could also add on these items? And so they actually, so you can get more money from the Backer Kit in the after campaign, and it's like a little pre-order store set up. So it was a pretty minimal cost compared to because I made a lot more money out of the Backer Kit as well. So that was just the one shameless plug I wanted to throw out, was for Backer Kit.
No, it's great information for our members and folks that want to create decks. You know, I did want to mention in chat, Muriel says, Canva.com is a graphic site where you can create your own designs, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of platforms out there if you're not an artist that, you know, and there's new things coming online. I'm trying to remember who it was through. It was one of the companies that for PC creates they make the graphic cards for Windows PCs.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember which company it was, but they recently came out with an AI powered design program that literally just creates it.
Right.
It is scary. It's scary.
Yeah, there's some interesting AI stuff coming out, like art-wise.
A lot of it. Yeah. So that's stuff to look into. I'm making a prediction here that there's going to be several tarot decks popping out there, you know, that were created by AI. In fact, we have yet to have the first person put out the very first AI created tarot deck. I think that's going to be a big deal just because it's got the word AI in it, you know, just you know, somebody's going to take that idea and run with it, because if you create the first of anything, guess what?
Yep.
People are going to want that, you know, where it's like, oh, all the art in this deck was created by AI, you know, I mean, yeah. So there, you know, but as far as assistance tools, there's a lot of stuff out there to help you, you know, create your deck.
One thing to note about Canva, Canva is wonderful, but I've read that there's some legalities with Canva, because I think one of the attributes of Canva is there's a whole lot of stock art and clip art that you can kind of pull from to kind of put things together and make something like a design. And some of those pieces are not royalty free or free use images.
You got to make sure everything's right.
Yeah, so you just got to read the fine print with Canva. If you create something in Canva, make sure you read the fine print so that you don't, if you try to make a deck or mass and make a large number of, quantity of it, just make sure you don't get in trouble with that.
That's another aspect of the AI that's really cool because it's original and therefore royalty free, and it cannot be duplicated. There's just like no
Right.
way, because
Yeah.
it's a one-time thing,
Yeah. That could really change things up too. That's for sure. Yeah. Muriel said some are free and some you have to buy it. That sounds right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just so people know, make sure you're using the ones you're allowed to use, and reproduce and stuff.
Look
So,
into that, and if anybody finds anything really cool, let us know about it, please.
great.
Absolutely. Oh, that
Anybody
sounds
else
awesome.
got questions? Anybody? Looking in chat, and thanks Muriel and everybody that commented in chat there.
Rory.
Rory, and yeah, if you have anything else, Rory or Ashley, you got anything?
No, I've just been soaking in the information. I've supported a lot of Kickstarter projects, and someone earlier commented on having to pull out of a Kickstarter. Yeah, sometimes life happens and you wind up having to pull out of one. It hurts.
Yeah, and it's nothing personal to the creator. It's just, it happens. I just wanted to mention in case people get alarmed if they see, like, because it'll happen, like it just does.
yeah.
So don't be hurt or anything. Just be like, okay. I'm
You
still-
don't
Jennifer,
love me
thank you so
anymore.
much for sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I'm so happy to. Thank you guys for having me. And
You're
anybody
awesome,
I'm
Jennifer.
always available for questions. If anybody thinks of something after the fact, you're welcome to
That's
DM me
true
directly.
too.
I always
A lot
am
of people are going to watch the recording of this, and if you got a question, contact Jen. And I just had to
Twitter
mention,
contacts or anything like that. Yeah.
right? Yeah, I just had to mention, I'm looking at Ashley's video image there, and then with the background and with her rainbow flowers, she looks like a tarot card if we took a snapshot.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it.
Awesome.
Well, thanks everybody for
Cool.
coming, and thank you again, Jennifer.
My
We're
pleasure.
gonna
Thank you.
stop the
Thanks, Jen.
recording now.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.